The Chicago Bears have one of the best offensive foundations in the NFL, period, right? Not the defense, not the special teams, the offense. One of the best offensive foundations between Caleb Wilson, Ben Johnson, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai, Darnell Wright, Joe Tooney. The offense is real, and we got real talent on the offensive side of the ball. CBS Sports ranked the Chicago Bears as the number 2 offensive foundation in the league. Now, the question becomes, can this group actually live up to the hype, and where will that hype lead them? We're also going to talk about the massive extension coming for Caleb Williams after the 2026 season and why and how that's going to affect the Chicago Bears and their team building going forward. We'll talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. Man, hey, the Chicago Bears, there's real excitement around the Chicago Bears offense, no doubt about it in regards to that, right? We all know that this Bears offense has the possibility to be elite and special this season, right? I think when you look at the Chicago Bears and the time that the Bears have had really good it's really never been about the offense for the Chicago Bears, right? If it wasn't for like Devin Hester, for example, who made the special teams have the impact and what it did in regards to that one, you look at the Bears, what they were from 2006 to 2013 when they had sub par quarterback play over the course of that time period. Look at even Rex Grossman getting the Chicago Bears to a Super Bowl, right? Jay Cutler area came and went. Mitch Trubinsky never got a second extension with the Chicago Bears. Maybe he would have done better on the Bulls than the Bears, right? But CBS Sports was ranking the foundations of the offense around the NFL, and the Chicago Bears came in at number 2 with the foundation, only behind the Los Angeles Rams, who are one of the favorites to land the Super Bowl, right? And when you look at the Chicago Bears offensive ecosystem as they laid it out here in regards to this one, Ben Johnson, having him, and also, Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams, and just how both these guys are some of the best offensive minds in the league, right? Then you look at the pass catching groups for this team, right? The depth that's there for the Chicago Bears in having Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, both running backs being able to catch passes out the backfield, the combination of the guys at the wide receiver 3 between Khalif Raymond, Jahade Walker, Xavier Thomas, we have legit weapons all up and down what this team could be offensively, right? And when you look at how the conversation has changed around the Chicago Bears based off where we were at the end of the Eberflus era to where we are now 1 year after into the Ben Johnson era, and how that just having a competent play caller and competent just overall playing development and coaching staff from top to bottom has changed a lot about the Chicago Bears and what's going on here. There's just no doubt. Ben Johnson's one of the most creative and most versatile offensive minds in the game of football. And it's going to take a step further this season, right? You've already heard how they're going to open up the route trees for Colston Loveland more this season, right? The addition of Sam Rouse, the 13-man personnel that we're going to run in regards to that. Make no doubt about it, there's still some things that you're looking at with this offensive group as well that you have to ask your questions about. The center play, right? The left tackle with Audrey Trapillo being out. And the left tackle seems like it's been something every year for the last few years for different reasons. But when you look at the foundation as well from this, it comes down to Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams as far as the foundation of it, but then also look at the run game. The Bears had last year. We got to see if they're going to live up to it. I think that we're in a pretty good spot because of our offensive line. The Bears have such a good running game. And there were times last year that many Bears fans, myself, C-Dub, Bobby, Kev, and Steve, all including a lot of you guys too, that said we need to be even more of a run first team, right? And it seemed like Ben Johnson, he wanted to establish Caleb. He wanted to establish a pass game and all that type of stuff. And I can't knock him for that. But it does seem like there's going to be, at least initially, to start off this season now, where it was not that way last year, a trust in that run game that they had to build up to get to last year, right? And so the rhythm's already there. And that's the thing that really can make this team even more special is the rhythm, the natural cadence that we're going to have. They've already talked about going more up-tempo because that factors into how Caleb Williams likes to play and where he's best at. But I also think it catches defenses off guard. We have the offensive mind. We have the offensive line. We have all these type of things to get it done in regards to that one. And I think overall, man, it takes a lot for this team overall, man, to get it together. And this team, I think what we have foundationally offensively is great. It's special. It could be amazing this season, right? And the players individually and how they're going to perform in that is going to be second. We had a voicemail, over the course of I think it was Saturday's mailbag, and I did with C-Dub. And, the person who called in on it, I don't remember the name. No offense there. Was talking about I think it was Keys. Talked about all the stats that everybody can get. The over 1,000 yards for this guy, over 1,000 yards this place, and all this like that. You know what I say to that? And we're going to talk a little bit about that because we have another article to talk about in regards to that. But overall, it's just the fact that we have the capability of doing that. And it doesn't sound crazy for somebody to say, hey, we can have 2,000-yard receivers on this team. We can have a running back duo that can bind for over 2,000 yards running, possibly just in your running back, not even counting what Caleb Williams is going to do. And you look at that and you have to say, no, there's a legitimate chance that those things could come into fruition and be real for the Chicago Bears this year. So the offense is going to be exciting. Now, I've said it many times before, and I'm going to always say it, but it still comes down to you need your offense and your defense to help each other. Those guys have to be in synergy. They have to be in sync. They have to be working together. Your offense has to put up points when your defense gets stops. Your defense has to get other teams off third down. We got to keep our defense fresh. They got to keep our offense fresh. All those type of things. We didn't have a lot of those games last year. And the hope is no matter where the defense ranks this year compared to last year is that you just have more games where the offense and defense, the balance and the synergy is there better between those two sides of the ball. And if it is, it's going to be great in regards to that, right? But then I want to also talk about the athletic show. Robert Mays talked about the Chicago Bears and specifically our receiving group in regards to that one. And this goes to show again how the conversation has changed. And he said this: I think there's a world where both of them do, but it's like both of them have 1,200 yards and Colston has another 1,000 and we're cooking with gas. Every single member of the Bears offense is going to break out this year. What does that look like, right? If you're talking about three players going over 1,000 yards receiving between Colston Loveland, Odunze, and Luther Burden, right? That would mean that between everything else, the running backs, the other tight ends, everything else, you're probably looking at a 4,500-yard season from Caleb Williams if that ends up happening, right? Keep in mind, that would be franchise history. Only twice have the Chicago Bears had 2,000-yard receivers. That's in 1995 and 2013. But to have three, that has never happened in regards to that. And a lot of that puts pressure on Odunze, who we know that he's dealing with the change to the bone in his foot and stuff like that. Luther Burden, who, many people think is going to be a top 10 wideout, maybe as soon as this season, right? And then, of course, Colston Loveland, who already is a top 10 tight end, maybe even top 5, and could be gunning for the number 1 tight end in the game of football this season. I want to say this, right? It sounds like Madden when you hear it put on paper, right? It sounds like that in regards to it. But I think overall, a big part of this comes down to because Luther and Caleb got their chemistry. Right now, there's also a chance that it could take a step back this year, but they have their chemistry. Colston Loveland and Caleb have had their chemistry. Odunze and Caleb are the ones that do not have the same chemistry, and those were the two that were drafted together. And that has been something that we've talked about before. I think when Caleb targets Rome, I think he has a QB rating of slightly over 82, if I'm not mistaken. It's off the top of my head. I don't have the stats here in front of me. While that's not terrible, I want to be clear. That's not necessarily terrible. It's not great either, right? And so you want to improve that. And so, all on top of us looking for somebody to replace the consistency of DJ Moore, if you get somebody in Rome and Caleb who work on their chemistry, Rome fixes the drops, Caleb fixes his overthrows, underthrows, and stuff like that. It's great. Rome Odunze is coming into this training camp reportedly fully healthy. Now, that is with the caveat that, of course, he said the way that he operates has changed now with the bone change in his foot and stuff like that, that he has a new normal, right? That's the exact phrase that Rome Odunze used in regards to that one, right? But I think if you look at the way that Rome started last season, where he started off on fire, now I'm not expecting him to maintain that same level for an entire season, but if you're just a more consistent version and closer to that for a whole year without having the ebbs and flows and dips because of injury and other things like that, Rome Odunze was on pace for 1,115 yards over the course of the Bears' first 5 games. Luther Burden was on a pace for 1,213 yards over the course of the final 5 games of the season. And Colston Loveland, over that entire stretch, was on pace for 1,043 yards. So there is some reason to believe that it could happen. It could very well happen. Of course, a lot comes down to the success that we have overall. You don't want to just be a passing team. You have to be a dual threat team. We need to be that team that establishes the run and really kind of uses that to establish our game going forward. And then we just build off of that. But this is a team that has weapons. We can come out at you from all sides the entirety of the game where teams just don't know where the attack is going to come from. That's a special part of it. But I do not want to overlook this part of it as well. You cannot overlook the importance of the offensive line in all of this. The offensive line has to be consistent. Just there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. If your offensive line does not maintain what they did last year, because, per what Darius has said before and some others have said before, I actually think Darius has already left a voicemail on it that we'll play in this upcoming mailbag about it. But when you look at it, is that when you have, here's what I'll say, a great offensive line can make a mediocre running back look great. And I'm not saying that our running backs are mediocre, but it makes a mediocre running back to possibly look great. It does more than what if you have a great running back behind a terrible offensive line, right? It's just the reality of it. That's how football works, right? When you talk about opening those gaps, maintaining your blocks, those type of things, giving the clear lanes to the running backs, all that type of stuff, do not overlook, even with the talk of the skill positions in Caleb and the wide receivers and the running backs and the tight ends, do not overlook the importance of the trenches. Trenches is one of the most important things in football. It just is. And it's one of the more unheralded things. Like when you have a offensive line that does its job, people kind of still focus on the skill position, right? The stats that they're getting. When you have an offensive line that doesn't do its job, oh my God, people are talking about the number of sacks and how they're getting blown up and everything. And it's one of those positions that doesn't really get the notice that it does unless you're like a big football head, like you love football that much to where you're talking very passionately and consistently about the offensive line. But it really comes down to that. The offensive line, the run game, are so important to what we're going to do and how we establish ourselves, because if we don't have those two things working in tandem, working consistently, and we have to turn into a one-dimensional passing team, we're not going to have the level of success that we want, right? So I want to spend some time also talking about that. It is hugely important for this offensive line to maintain, if not exceed, what they did last year. And I understand missing Drew Dahlman sucks. Aji Trapillo being gone after a rookie year where he worked himself up to be that starting left tackle, it sucks. But you got to have guys that can stand in there and deliver day in and day out, because if you have that, that's what can help you take your team over the top. If we want to get to where we think we can as a team, where we want to as a team, and make that next step as a franchise, you have to have your offensive line together. And so we'll see what happens in regards to that. But there are some questions, of course, with the offensive line, like I said, the left tackle position, with the center position. But I think we're going to be adequate enough in those, if not even thriving in those situations. I know Braxton Jones has his detractors, and people want to see Theo Benedict, Jedrick Wills have an opportunity in that as well. We'll see what's going to happen in regards to that one. But overall, I say this. The offense has a lot of eyes on it now. And if you have been a Bears fan as long as I have, shout out to my almost 40 years on this planet, if you've been a Bears fan as long as I have, you've known almost every time the Chicago Bears start building positive momentum, positive word of mouth, positive talk around the team, we sometimes as a franchise shit the bed. We can talk about the Chicago media bias and how the media covers the Chicago teams and all that type of stuff, and it's legitimate too, but almost every time it seems like we're on that upward trend, we start falling off. It doesn't feel like we're going to have that with this group. And I say feel because they have to prove it on the football field, but it does not feel like we're going to have that with this group, and a big part of that is because of Ben Johnson. So we're going to see what's going to happen in regards to that. But I talked a little bit about the offensive line, and I want to get into this comment that happened from Jay Hood, who talked about a little bit of the offensive line and asked something that, based off Courtney Cronin and what she said in regards to the left tackle, saying this: Penny Sewell is moving to the left tackle in Detroit. Are you willing to invest any discussion in Darnell Wright trying some reps at left tackle if that player is not identified? Here's the thing, right? Now, Hood did say he was willing to have the decision. He made reference to General Manager Ryan Poles talking about Darnell Wright as a left tackle option 2 years ago, right? That was towards the end of Matt Eberflus and his era. And I do think there may be some talk about it. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was mainly media-driven and maybe fan-driven. I can't remember if Dan Rouchar or Ben Johnson ever talked about permanently moving Darnell Wright last year to left tackle. But here's the thing. Darnell Wright is not a left tackle, right? He's one of the best right tackles in the game, one of the best tackles in the game of football as well. I think like you have to know that in regards to this, and you're not moving. You should not have to move Darnell Wright to switch sides. I think at this point with it, Darnell Wright has established himself as one of the best right tackles in the game of football. Wood said this in regards to that show. He said this: "It's easier to replace the left tackle than the right tackle. If Darnell Wright went to left tackle, do you have a right tackle in place ready to go? No, right? You don't have that. Darnell Wright has now been somebody that maybe 2 years ago you could have made the conversion. And not to say, listen, Darnell Wright is talented enough that if you wanted to move him to left tackle, you probably can, right? But I do think at this point, when you have Darnell Wright, who has established himself as one of the best right tackles in the game of football, he's going to have a contract that's going to pay him like one of the best tackles in the game of football. I don't really think it's about a question if he can play left tackle, right? Because I think he can do whatever. I think Darnell Wright has shown himself to be good enough, and he played some left tackle in college that he could figure it the fuck out. But the question becomes about why would you want to move a player off their most comfortable position? One thing people will know, like this year, it's been about analytics. Me and Darius going back and forth about analytics. Last year around this time, it was about Darius trying to switch everybody's position. Like it was just, let's just switch their position. The attributes are going to change like it's Madden. Like in my thought process is when you have a player that has shown himself to be elite at a position, you don't move that unless it's a dire needs and dire strengths. And I think the Bears are going to be competent enough at the left tackle position, with still having Audrey Trapillo as a long-term option there. And I think at some point we're going to have the talk of, should we even still be assuming that, right? Like, and the reason why I say that about Audrey Trapillo is that the injury that he had, it's easy to just say, yeah, you're going to come back, you're going to take a year off maybe, you're going to come back, you're going to be right back. But there could be some long-term effects to Audrey Trapillo in that. And the Bears may want to start investing in a high-level backup left tackle, and I thought they may do that in this draft just in case. But that's a story for another day. We're not going to get into that. I'll get into that content at some point in another. I'm going to actually, what I'll do? I'll actually spend some time looking up the history of the injury that Audrey Trapillo suffered and how specifically offensive linemen have recovered from that, like specifically offensive linemen and how they recovered from that, because I think it'd be interesting to talk about that and what that means for Audrey Trapillo as a long-term prognosis. So let me write that down. I'll get to that sometime this week. We'll have a long-term conversation about that. But, at this point, like, why? Why move somebody who's been elite at their position? I think, you let him continue to thrive at where he's thrived at, and you just continue to find somebody that can fill in for that left tackle. And hopefully Audrey Trapillo is going to come back and be the player that he was when he left. But the last topic I want to talk about before we get out of here is Caleb Williams and his pending contract extension, right? Now, there have been some talk about Caleb Williams being motivated by this contract extension or not. I think Caleb Williams is motivated by wanting to be great. I think that's what he's motivated. I don't think, you're going to get a great contract by being great, but I think Caleb Williams is locked into wanting to be great, right? And when you look at an offense that went from 28th in points scored to 9th, right, in Caleb Williams' first 2 seasons in the league, there's going to be, and comeback attempts, all that type of stuff, there's going to be a real, like Caleb Williams' contract right now, according to Spotrac or Spotrac, however you pronounce it, Caleb Williams' market value currently right now, a 4-year deal worth $206 million, which comes out to $51.7 million per season. And I think that people could say that may even be on the low end. Like when you look at Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, they make at least $60 million per season when it's all said and done. There are another 5 quarterbacks in the league that make at least $55 million per season. Caleb Williams is about to get paid. And that's not if, ands, or buts about it. When you have a franchise quarterback that you lock in the modern era, you pay that guy. But I think the thing that we have to also think about, and this is what it seems like Ryan Poles is already thinking about. This is why when people flip out about us not making the Max Crosby trade and stuff like that, you have to think about what that means for your team building going forward. When you have that much of your salary cap eaten up by one player, it is, and again, I'm not saying he hasn't earned it. I'm not saying he won't earn it. That's not what I'm talking about here. But it makes it makes how you team build, and it puts an even bigger emphasis on hitting on your draft picks, developing players, finding smart, players to bet money on when you can, especially if you can find players on teams that may have gotten a little bit unnoticed and you can get them for really good, and with an expanded role, they can do really good for you. That is going to have to be this next phase for the Chicago Bears. This upcoming draft in 2027 is going to be even much more important than almost any other draft that Ryan Poles hits on just about every single pick that we get. Because with Darnell Wright, who's going to get paid like one of the best tackles in the game of football, which is going to be expensive. When you have Caleb Williams, who's going to get paid like a franchise quarterback, which is going to be expensive, you're probably looking at over $100 million or close to it coming to just those 2 players. I may be overestimating on that. Darnell Wright's probably going to get anywhere between 25 and 30 million. So still, like, you're looking at $80-85 million between those two players, if not more, depending on what Caleb Williams signs for. It's going to be a big thing in team building development. That is why having the right coaching staff, having the right positional coaches, drafting well, having the right scouts, working tandem is going to be drastically important for the Chicago Bears in this next phase. When you have a franchise quarterback, everything else gets maximized because you have to pay that guy. And so now how you build around that guy is going to be drastically important, right? And you are going to see a world in which, and I know this is something a lot of people don't want to think about yet because we're not necessarily here yet, but there are going to be some guys that earn extensions that aren't going to get them with the Chicago Bears. There are going to be some that do, but there are going to be some guys that don't because you're going to see more kind of Jaquan Brisker type things, right? Because of how restrictive that can be. And so development is going to be hugely important. And then if you look at, like, you talk about guys like Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Kyle Monangai, like Rome Odunze, as these guys start earning extensions themselves, you're cutting even deeper into that, right? And so that balancing act is going to be the next great thing for Ryan Poles that he's going to have to manage. And I can't wait to see what he does with it because, listen, Ryan Poles hasn't missed on as much as Bears fans would have him believe, but he hasn't hit on everything either. And that hit rate is going to be very important as you continue to build out once you have a franchise quarterback that's paid like a franchise quarterback. But that's how I'm going to end the show, man. Let me know how you guys feel on all the topics down below. Make sure you guys sound off in the comment section. I want to hear from each and every one of you. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ShyBearCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.